Welcome to Florida Gators Live 17. We ramp up as we're getting very close to spring practice. Very exciting time. But to talk about something else kind of related with the Gators, it is Keanu O'Neal, just within the past 2 hours, hour maybe, announced his retirement from the sport of football. Uh, a player that ended up being a first-round pick for the Gators, obviously started for the Falcons when they made their big Super Bowl run and ended up blowing that 28-3 lead. So I thought it was a little cool moment to shout him out and congratulate him on the career he had.
Yeah, had a pretty solid career, was a really fun player for the Gators in college, was kind of part of those Will Muschamp era defenses that were, say what you will about the Will Muschamp era, but those defenses were fun to watch. And I'll always remember Keanu O'Neal as a pretty key part of those teams.
Yeah, I always see on Twitter the video of me like, Keanu O'Neal did this in college, and it's the video of him just hit sticking Derrick Henry against Alabama. He also had a touchdown in that game, so he had a pretty good game against Bama there. But yeah, I thought it'd be a little cool shout out for Keanu O'Neal before we get into the actual show. We actually finally started getting some more breaking news for the Gators. We hired our GMs last week, and we announced their promotion for Russ Callaway to the offensive coordinator position. I want to get your input on this first.
I mean, I guess for me to give a full take here, I kind of need some clarity on what this actually means, because Callaway was already listed as co-OC, was given that title heading into 2024. Was the tight ends coach here, has continued to be the tight ends coach. Not calling plays, and he still won't call plays. Billy continuing to call plays, which we both expected. I don't think either of us thought that there was I wouldn't say I'm surprised to see Callaway continuing to get moved up in responsibility, but didn't think he would be handed play calling duties. I mean, it's interesting to see if he has a bigger input in the offense, particularly the passing game, because Russ Callaway's whole background kind of was the OC previously at Samford. He's an air raid guy, which isn't exactly Billy's style. So I'd be interested to see if he has any, more of an input. I think he had some this year. I think you certainly saw when Lagway came in, some air raid elements to that offense, but it's still Billy calling plays. I mean, I guess my big question is, what does this mean for Rob Sale? I'm not sure we've exactly gotten clarity in that regard.
We do, or at least I can give it.
Which I miss.
Rob Sale is not doesn't have the OC position title.
Okay. So they just took that. So he basically got demoted.
Coach.
Okay.
Virtually, he's got demoted, yes.
So I missed that. That's what I assumed was happening, but I missed that was official. So, okay. So that makes it make a little bit more sense. I mean, I don't think Rob Sale had a tremendous input in the offense anyway, maybe in the running game, but I mean, we know run design is kind of Billy's strong suit anyway. So I would kind of assume that's where he's the most prominent voice in the room. I mean, I've made my opinions on this pretty clear in the past on this show. Like, I think Florida should have gone out and hired a true proven play caller to alleviate that responsibility from Billy Napier. I think that's something they may come to regret this season. But Callaway seems like a bright young coach. Like, I don't have issues with him getting more responsibilities on the staff. I guess this doesn't really affect my outlook too much, either one way or the other, I guess, is a long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, so do we still have the rules to where you can only have a certain amount of on-field coaches?
No, I'm pretty sure that's gone. I'm pretty sure there's not really limits at this point. Like, analysts can coach on game day on the sideline.
So I'm starting to get a little bit confused. Like, why have Russ Callaway as the tight end coach? Because it feels like he's just given that title so that he could be on the field and stuff. So that's kind of where I'm getting confused, because I mean, he's a guy that receives a lot of praise from Billy from his time as the OC with Samford. So a bit confusing why we still have him as the tight end coach when, I mean, that's a room that struggles, that we've seen struggle from. We're hoping to see improvement. We talked about a lot of that last week's show. So, I mean, maybe he is a good tight end coach and just hasn't had the right capacity, with offensive scheming or with the talent in that room and play calling and QB injuries and stuff like that happening. So, there's some wiggle room for him to still potentially be a good tight end coach. But it seems like Billy's brought in here just to keep promoting him up as an OC. A lot of game planning, getting those set scheduled drives. Like we saw last year, or I mean, the previous year, Billy's offense was pretty good getting touchdowns and scoring on his first drives. And I mean, it's a bit thing we saw a little bit less this year, but I think that was with a combination of playing multiple QBs and having offense that was very inconsistent and throughout the year. So that I do, however, know that Russ Callaway did call certain plays. Don't know when, where, how, or what those plays were, but I do know he called some plays, and I would expect him to call more in this coming up year, especially getting that promotion to just OC, not co-OC. I do think Billy does like Russ Callaway and sees a way for Russ to maybe eventually call plays here, unless like Russ decides to move on before Billy would even give him the opportunity. But like you said, I also wanted us to hire a play caller. Like they didn't have to be an OC, but that's what they usually are. But I specifically did want a play caller as well. So I do think it raises the ceiling of the offense a bit. Still think we can have that 9 or 10 win season that we both projected like a month ago. But I do think with an OC, probably raises the potential of Lagway of hoping he can win the Heisman. So I do think there's a difference that people like think if the offense needs to be elite and put up 40 points a game for us to be a 10-win team. When I think we saw at the end of the year, this can be an offense that puts up 27, 24 points and have good moments, maybe see a bit more consistency, but still win those games against top 25 and top 10 teams.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll say this, like, I think this is a good thing in the sense that, like, I mean, frankly, I don't think Billy Napier is really a great offensive coordinator. Like he's never been anything in his career more than a serviceable offensive coordinator, kind of at his best. So, other voices in the room with other perspectives, like to me, that's only a good thing. I just, if you are frustrated with Billy's offensive philosophy and you were hoping that would change with an OC hire this offseason, like that's not what this is. Nothing's going to fundamentally change in terms of how the offense operates. But yeah, maybe there are some new wrinkles thrown in, kind of given Callaway's background being pretty different than Billy's in terms of style of play.
Yeah, this also makes me wonder about there were talks about us hiring Steve Spurrier Jr. as a passing game coordinator. Guy with a lot of SEC experience as an offensive coordinator and play caller. If we were to get him to be just a passing game coordinator, obviously the longer we go on, the less likely that seems. And like we're getting to the point where we're going to be actually playing in spring. So I think it's unlikely at this point that we do hire him. But you already mentioned it with Russ Callaway having that experience in the air raid offense, about him improving the passing schemes and getting, we ran out of a lot of routes where you would just have players eliminated from catching the ball, whether it was two players running in the same area or just someone kind of just sitting there in a coverage. Like it's something that the offense is a very big weakness for. And even a great QB like DJ Lagway was, and we hope he is, can't get past that.
Yeah, we saw DJ, I think. I don't want to say maximize the system because he was far from perfect this year, but I think we saw with DJ that the system has a little more to it than we've been seeing in the 2 years with Graham Mertz and even with AR to an extent, because as talented as AR was, like they didn't open the playbook for AR quite in the same way that they did have for Lagway. So do with that as you will. But I think, there is potentially more to it than that. Yeah. And when it comes to the passing game, like it can be explosive. Like I just think there is still too much of kind of what you were saying, just stuff that's doesn't seem to me to be like optimized from a design perspective. And like, I'm obviously not a play design expert, but you can watch things on film and be like, well, that's obviously that didn't work. What they were trying to do there did not work. It feels like we have that a little bit too often in the passing game, and Lagway's ability alleviates that a little bit, but I don't know if that is an excuse for it, if that makes sense. Like just because Lagway can work within the system and make it look decent doesn't mean that the system itself couldn't be overhauled pretty significantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. There's just some things Billy likes to control the game at his pace.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would include a whole overhaul of the offense and trying to run up scores. Like, even when you go look at games where we did put up points, like Kentucky, we scored 49 points or 48 points.
I think 48.
A lot of that, it was 48.
I think so.
Okay. A lot of that was, okay, DJ, when we're up 34-20, where the game's already over, it's like 5 minutes left. Lagway just hits a deep ball on a third down that lets us score. And then Cormani gets a pick 6. I mean, are you looking at the offense, or are you coming out that Kentucky game any differently if we scored 38 versus how we scored 48? I mean, 34 if we scored 48? Like,
not really.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, you don't really look at the offense any differently because you put up some garbage time points.
Yeah.
So it's like, I do think people do understand how the offense needs to work, because they'll be like, just look at the Kentucky game, and that's what we need to do every game. When really it's like, that's how they played when they played better competition. Like, that's kind of what they did.
Well, I guess that's true, but I guess my thing is, it's like, you know, that game, like, you were just up big. That was a bad team. You were giving them the business. Kind of the same thing. Same thing with UCF. I mean, what was that game, like 24-7 at halftime, 24-0 at halftime?
21-3, I think, or
okay.
Yeah, 21-3.
Yes, you were up 3 scores at halftime. Like, would I have liked to put the foot on the gas a little bit, given how this team has kind of played in the past? Like, sure, but it was fine in that game because they couldn't do anything on offense. Like, to me, that's a little bit different. Like, I think you run into problems when they played the more talented teams. Like, obviously, you know, in the games with Mertz against, you know, obviously the early games against Miami and Texas A&M. I mean, I think even with Lagway, like, I think the offense left some opportunities on the table in the LSU game, and maybe to a lesser extent in the Ole Miss game. But, you know, I think that I don't know. It seems like I'm not saying I want Florida to just run up the score and win these games. Like, I'm not mad that they're beating, you know, the G5 team 35-7 instead of 55-3. Like, that's not what I'm complaining about. I feel like once they play teams that are capable of actually stopping it, the offense kind of can run into some problems. And I think to the extent that it didn't this year, I think that was because of Lagway just elevating things and doing things that teams weren't prepared for a true freshman quarterback to do.
Well, I also think when you throw Lagway in there, we kind of saw 2 different worlds with Mertz and Lagway. I mean, Warner was just some fourth dimension. But when you saw Mertz in there outside those like first 3 games, I think you really saw, like, against UCF and Tennessee, the offense was like very consistently driving down the field. They weren't just going 3 and out or getting 2 first downs. I mean, against Tennessee, we left like 13, 17 points on the board against Tennessee in that first half alone. Like, they were getting down the field, which is a part of Napier's play calling. You know, it's also some players making mistakes, like Mertz fumbling the ball in the 1. So that's going to happen in a game. That's going to happen in a game. And then UCF, you already talked about it. We were up 21-3 at halftime. That game's over. We win 24-13. Like, we only got 3 drives in that second half. So we really did run out the clock, and I mean, so did UCF. So I also want an OC because, again, I think it does raise the potential. But I don't know if it necessarily how much it changes the win outcome for the Gators. Like, because I do think this defense is going to be really good. So, which we'll talk about more later on in this show.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have anything you wanted to
push back? No, not really.
No?
I think that wraps it up pretty good.
All right. Comment. Still going to run, but passing game will open up. Thank God. Lead to more points. Lagway. Yeah, Lagway healthy. That's something I forgot to mention. I mean, you said missed opportunities in that LSU and Ole Miss game. Do we hit those opportunities if Lagway is more mobile? I think that's something you genuinely have to wonder about. Same with the FSU and Tulane game.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly, like, I was watching some DJ Lagway highlights the other day of games earlier in the season before he was even starting, or like at least before he got hurt in the Georgia game. Like, you do forget, like, I don't think DJ is going to be like putting up crazy production in the ground, but like, you do forget how hobbled he really was at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, the mobility, it's a very night and day difference. Like, I'd honestly kind of forgotten just how big of a difference it was.
Yeah, I think you're going to look at Lagway and his rushing stats are going to be like 20, 30 yards. But then I think the difference, what could be us being a playoff team and being a good team, could be, okay, that one big game, like the LSU, maybe Miami, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, like 1 or 2 of those games that we probably would have lost, but he ends up going for like 100 yards on the ground. Like they just can't stop him. Like how we saw with LSU. I mean, Marcel Reed was obviously is probably a more mobile QB than Lagway.
Yeah, he is.
Like you saw, if they don't have Marcel Reed, A&M probably would have lost that LSU game. So, or we saw LSU do Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe just took over that game against them. So it's like, I think we're going to need to have those 1 or 2 games in those big time situations where Lagway's mobility is the key difference maker.
Yeah.
Even in Sunbelt Billy's majority wins were 1-score victories, and he had the better team. His offense execution based so that leaves little room for error. I mean, I also think it's not as true for this year. I mean, we beat Tulane 33-8, beat FSU 31-11. I'm not going to complain about beating a top 10 Ole Miss team by 7 points. And they were not the better team. Like, there were scouts at the Senior Bowl saying Ole Miss probably had the most talented team in the SEC. LSU, we beat by 2 scores. And again, like, that's very comparable talent. LSU probably had an advantage, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one is probably pretty comparable.
Yeah.
Especially this LSU with everything LSU lost from last year, because they've certainly been the more talented team the last few years.
I can agree with you there. And then,
I mean,
like, you go to past years. I mean, we beat Tennessee in 2023 by 2 scores. Like, we lost a lot of games at the end, a lot of close games. I also do think Billy is still a young coach. I mean, before coming to Florida, he had, 4 years of head coaching experience, and it was at Louisiana. So I do think we've seen a lot of growing pains. That's kind of what I'm banking on going into next season in the future, that we just had some big growing pains from Billy Napier. And through that midway point of this season, that first bye week is when we saw Billy Napier kind of grow up and figure out what he needs to do in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it's been, in terms of like my perception, I think it's been a little bit of a mixed bag this offseason, whether that's the case. Like, there's been some things he's done that, do seem like they're improved. There's other things he's done that still kind of make me question whether he gets what it's going to take to win here. I mean, specifically with the offense, like, I mean, I would like the offense to be more explosive. I think Florida struggles to win big games when I mean, we saw that, like Florida, as much as we talk about Lagway, like we've talked about it before, the defense was why they caught on at the end of this season this year. And I think Florida has really struggled to win games under Billy Napier when the defense isn't playing well. And I'm not sure the offense, because I don't know if the offense can keep up in games like that, because there isn't that necessarily that explosion, though they are pretty at least solid and decent down to down.
Yeah, when you do look at those higher scoring games, if you go back, there weren't really any this year that I can think of.
No,
but you go back to last year, Missouri was in the 30s, we lost. Arkansas was in the 30s, we lost. LSU, I mean, that was like
LSU, the worst defensive performance in program history, and still somewhat of a game, like a little bit. So I guess
we had the lead in the third quarter
in that regard. Yeah, I mean, that was
like
that LSU defense was maybe even worse than ours was.
It was straight up.
So yeah, so I don't read too much into keeping pace a little bit in that game, but yeah.
I'm trying to figure out who he's saying here.
I think he's saying Aiden Mizell, right?
Probably, yeah. What Jackson's saying here. No, you're probably right about Mizell there. Tell your friends and family, your cashiers at Walmart and Publix, about the magic that both us Tylers bring on Gators Live every Sunday.
Yep. Thank you, Jackson. Please do that.
And then don't forget to tell the cashiers at Walmart and Publix about the magic that Tyler Natuno brings on College Sports Wire, and about the tremendous articles he writes.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you can check out my site too if you want to, my day job, College Sports Wire.
Russ is going to save us. Again, we'll see. Really, let it play out.
He's just not going to be that influential one way or the other. Like, if things get right, if the offense is elite this year, Billy Napier gets the credit for that. Like, as begrudging as that would be for me to say, like, Billy Napier would get the credit. He's still the play caller. Like,
he is. All right. And yeah, okay. Let's get into some more basketball talk. I mean, we talked about it for the past 3-4 weeks now. I mean, this team is just so good. It's so fun to watch. Pick up another 14-point win on the road to LSU. An LSU team that I wouldn't classify as hot, but they were kind of simmering going into that game, picking up back-to-back wins. I mean, getting that crazy win over Oklahoma and then getting a 14-point win over South Carolina. Like, not crazy good wins, but, I mean, any win in the SEC is a good win. And you win back-to-back, including a nice double-digit win. I mean, that's a team that they gave us some problems. I mean, early on, the Gators, it looked like it was going to be a blowout like how the Oklahoma game was. But then LSU goes on like a 22-2 run in like the final 7 minutes to end the half. And we look back and they have a 4-point lead at halftime. They have a 4-point lead at halftime.
Yeah, very weird game. Because, like, I mean, Florida literally dominated that game for 35 minutes. But it looked like they were going to lose at one point. I mean, because, like you said, that 22-2 run, do you realize that run took up 4 minutes and 48 seconds of game time? Literally, it was 5 minutes of the game that was competitive, essentially. Like, they had like some runs go like starting off the second half, but like that big run was just
they had a little
less than
3-minute run in the second half.
Yeah. But like the big run was literally just 5 minutes. So like it was kind of a dominant Florida win. Like the fact that it was only a 14-point win was like kind of like just because of that 1 5-minute run where LSU was just hitting everything.
And we were missing everything.
Yeah, like if it wasn't for that weird stretch, they would have won that game by 20 plus points.
Yeah,
even the Oklahoma game too, it was a bigger like that. I feel like it was a bigger blowout for most of the game than the final score ended up being. I don't remember what the biggest lead Florida had in that game was, but it was.
I think we were up at like 30 points, and then Oklahoma hit a couple threes at the end of it to bring it like 22 or something like that. But I mean, we just missed. Like, I saw someone tweet that, this is going to be the reason why Florida can't win a national championship, and it was just something about our offense. And I was thinking, okay, we go on a 5-minute stretch where we're just missing shots we normally make, and that's the reason we're not going to win a championship. After we blow out Auburn, blow out Mississippi State, blow out South Carolina, blow out Oklahoma, but we can't win a championship because of that. But then you look at Auburn, who their past 2 games, both home games against 2 of the bottom 5 teams in the SEC, close game against Arkansas. I don't know if you watched that Auburn-Arkansas game.
A little bit.
But at the end there was just some horrible call that, like, really, Auburn was still probably going to win, but giving Auburn that call just kind of sealed it. Like, it was just a very weak, like, touch call that it's like, I can kind of see it, but it's the end of a game. You kind of got to let him play.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, we aren't going to win a championship because of like a 5-minute stretch, but Auburn, I saw coming off those games, people calling Auburn still like the best team in the country, and because of those games, they are. But Florida gets some hate because of them, but like, I don't know. What were
I would say like to be a little bit fair to whoever said that. Like, I will say, if there's one thing that does kind of frustrate me about this team, it's they've never, like, it's never really cost them. Like, they've kind of been able to stop doing it before it gets too problematic. But like, there is kind of, it seems like there's a tendency to where when they get in those situations where the other team's hot and maybe they're missing shots, I feel like they really start to force. Like, they start taking some bad shots, like forcing threes that you just don't need, like shooting early in the shot clock, just bad shots. Like, I feel like we were kind of doing that for a little bit yesterday, and they got out of it pretty quickly. But that is like, and that's why I'm not too concerned about it, because it's never like just been an entire game where that's the case. But that is something that does concern me a little bit, because I do feel like we just tend to get out, especially because our offense is kind of like all about creating, like you know what I mean? It's like using movement to create open shots. And like, if we're getting lazy and like getting desperate and taking bad shots, like against LSU, that deficit's not going to compound because they're not that good. But against a team you'll play in the tournament, it could. So that does concern me a little bit. But like, again, we're talking about 5 minutes of a game, and where the rest of it was like dominant basketball. So kind of nitpicking here.
Yeah, something that does like help this team when they are just kind of missing shots and they feel like they need to force it. Having one of the best bigs in the SEC, like Alex Condon, does help that, where you just try to feed him, which even missing him, we still did that really well with Ruben Chinyelu. who got a
he
new
was
career high,
fantastic.
19 points and 13 rebounds. You also had Thomas Hauck get 16 points and 10 rebounds. Yeah. I think 13 of those points were in the second half. So he really stepped up in that second half, which makes sense. I think in the final 10 minutes of that game, we outscored LSU like 33-11. Like, again, what you brought up, like the first 10 minutes of that game, we outscored LSU, I think 29 to like 14.
29 to 15, I think was the score. Yeah.
And then the last 10 minutes of the game, we outscored them 33-11. So it really was dominant besides just a couple minutes of that game, which was a bad couple minutes.
Rob, Will Richard did play. He didn't play particularly well, but he did play.
Actually, let me check something on Will Richard. Yeah. I mean, a 70 grade, a 70 offensive rating, which was quite easily the worst on the team.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about Richard, I will say that's better. We've seen Elijah Martin like the Tennessee game where he does horrible, and it's like he's 0 of 10 from 3. When Richard has a bad game, it's 0 of 2. Like he doesn't force the shots like the other like a Walt's. Like I'm okay with Walt forcing a shot because I know Walt can hit any shot on the court. But Elijah Martin, like I know Elijah Martin can hit any shot, but it's also he doesn't hit him as good of a rate that Walter Clayton does.
He's definitely one of the biggest defenders here. I mean, Clayton forces a ton, but it's like, again, like you said, it's hard to get mad at it because you'll take a shot and be like, what are you doing? And then he sinks it. So it's like, okay.
Exactly.
I mean, fair. I want to circle back just real quick, man, because like the bigs, like the way they're playing without Alex Condon, man, it's really unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Inilu, like you said, best game of his career, I think. I mean, I can't speak to what he did at Washington State last year.
It was the best game of his career.
Certainly the best game of his Florida career. I mean, obviously statistically it was, but I mean, just even if he didn't tell me his numbers, just watching him play, I mean, he was just a force. And Hauck, man, like Hauck is just like, I don't know how even to say, like, it's just pure effort. Like
it is.
He's like 6'9", and he might as well be 7 foot because that's how he plays. Like that's how aggressive he is on the boards, like going up over guys who are bigger than him to get rebounds because he just wants it more. And the way he finishes, like second chance points, like he is just like he is as fun a player for Florida basketball as I've ever seen. Like on it, like I mean, Clayton is one of the most fun. Like so, he's probably not the most fun on the team, but like. For a guy who wasn't even starting until Alex Condon got hurt, like he is such a difference maker.
Yeah,
and I'm really
I do expect him to go back on the bench though.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just like because it's assuming he comes back next year, which I would think he will. I don't have any reason to think he wouldn't.
Hauck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have started to see him get a little bit of NBA draft hype, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Condon,
I'm shocked if he's gone.
I'm kind of expecting Condon's gone at this point. Now that I'm starting,
I don't know if I expect it.
It may be expected. It's not. I should say like mentally preparing myself.
Okay, yeah, prepared. That's better. Yeah,
because like if he's starting to get some first round hype, and like if Condon gets a first round grade, like honestly, he should go. Like I don't think he's gonna like become a lottery pick next year. So like probably.
I mean, I've seen people say that with another year he could become a lottery pick.
You think so? I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I think another year of improving his shot, UF plus just dominating and getting better defensively. Like I've seen people talk about him coming a lottery pick in the NBA draft.
We'll see. I'm not sure I buy that, but I hadn't seen that, so that's interesting.
Okay. I did want to point out here, like when you look at 3-pointers, yeah, this was not Walt's best game. 2 of 8 from 3. Like no one else. I mean, Hauck 2 of 2 from 3. Amart 2 of 4, so that's not even bad. Then Richard 0 of 2, Aberdeen 0 of 2, and Klausar 1 of 4. I didn't really feel like Klausar went 1 of 4. That's interesting there.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty excited about Klausar, by the way. Like,
yeah.
I think he's not like really going to play a big impact like in the tournament this year, but I think he could be a pretty good player next year.
Yeah, for sure, he definitely could. To mention Walter Clayton. Now up to number 6 on Ken Palm's Player of the Year rankings. He's starting to get a lot of hype for first team All-American. Like if he just keeps continuing playing how he is, getting a lot of assists. He had 2 blocks and 2 steals as well 13 points, which I think he had that 13th point with like 15 minutes ago. And it's like kind of slows down, kind of helps the whole team go around. And like Clayton can score when he needs to score. That's how I'll put it. But let's focus on what we're really here to talk about. The Gators are on their path to a 1 seed now. Currently, I had the bracket team ranking. I don't know where it went, but team rankings currently gives the Gator, I think it was like a 66% chance to get a 1 seed above Alabama, which is in part because Alabama does have a tough schedule coming up. But man, we're really fighting towards that 1 seed. Currently, Bracket Matrix has us consensus 1 seed across all 87 brackets. You have Bama, who's right below us, of that 4th 1 seed in almost all. They're a 1.08 average. Well, obviously we're 1.0 as well as Duke and Auburn. Kind of sucks that Duke blew out Illinois last night because, well, resume-wise, it kind of still makes it look like Florida is right there with Duke. But now that Duke got that blowout win over Illinois, bracketologists now just kind of have another reason to keep Duke above us. And they're probably not going to lose until maybe they lose in the ACC tournament because they don't go fully. But Duke's a lock for a 1 seed at this point.
Yeah.
Really, there's 4 teams competing for that last 1 seed. Or last 2 1 seeds, sorry. Florida, Alabama, who are like the near consensus 2 last 1 seeds. And Alabama got a big win at Kentucky on Saturday.
At home. I think it was at home. It was in Tuscaloosa, but yeah.
Oh, it was in Tuscaloosa? Okay, my fault.
Yeah.
But then you also have Houston and Tennessee, and man, this is very close. Because you also had Houston last night. They got a big win against... Who was it they got a big win against? I completely forgot. Hold up, I had their schedule right here. They got a... Oh, wait, no, they didn't get a big... Oh, they didn't play Saturday. Okay, sorry. On last Saturday, they got a big win at Arizona. And then on Tuesday, they destroyed Arizona State. Tomorrow... Oh, wait, no.
Wait, so you're talking about Houston? They played Iowa State.
Yeah, they got a big win over Iowa State. And then they go to Texas Tech tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like Florida's currently like consensus above them, but you get back-to-back top 10 wins and one on the road. I mean, Florida, I think we easily control our own destiny, but to a 1 seed. But man, Houston is right there, as well as Tennessee, as they got a big win at Texas A&M. Yeah. Now the thing is, Tennessee and Alabama, they still play each other. Tennessee goes to LSU on Tuesday. I mean, we just saw LSU. If they get hot, it could be a trap. Tennessee plays Alabama Saturday, a home game for them. Then they go to Ole Miss and host South Carolina. I mean, if you have Tennessee go 4-0, it's like they should also be a 1 seed. But then you also have Houston. If they go 4-0, they should also be a 1 seed. And then you have Florida. If we somehow go 4-0, we should also be a 1 seed. That's 3 spots. But then if you have Bama, I mean, let's say they go 3-1, beating Florida or Tennessee. I mean, 3-1 for Florida or Tennessee should also probably be 1 seeds. And 3-1 for Bama will, I think, be a 1 seed. I mean, I saw Ken Palm. There have been, I think, it was like 6 teams that all time have ever had a Ken Palm grade of 35 plus. Currently, there's 3, and Florida's at 35 or 34 right now. So we're right on the door. I mean, the resumes of these teams this year has been out of this world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's obviously a Tennessee loss on Saturday to Texas A&M would have been nice. That would have helped a little bit. Like you said, it's interesting that because Alabama's not a consensus 1 seed on across brackets, but they are in a lot of the ones I've looked at higher above Florida on the seed.
They are. Yes.
Florida's projected as the 4th 1 seed. So they'd be the one if a Houston or a Tennessee were to get bumped back up to the 1 line. At this moment in time, it would be at Florida's expense. I think I said last week on the show that Florida would probably be good if they finished the regular season 4-1 to get a 1 seed. I feel a little bit differently about that.
Yeah,
I kind of think you got to win out. I think maybe if you beat Alabama and lose to Texas A&M, maybe. But I think you have to at least beat Alabama to get that one.
Maybe seed. Not. I mean, Houston has to go to Texas Tech. They go to Baylor and they play Kansas. Kansas is on a decline, but still, Kansas is talented.
Yeah.
So they could get a win. I mean, to answer Rob's question, yes. Houston still has 3 quad 1 games. We also have 4. Wait. Yeah, we have four at Georgia.
Four quad one games to close it out. Yeah.
So it's really, if we drop one and Houston and Tennessee and Alabama don't drop one, then we won't be a 1 seed. But I mean, you got to think Houston, Tennessee probably lose one of those games. If they each lose one, and Florida also only loses one, and Bama also only loses one, then I would figure things just kind of stay the same, depending on what that is.
Yeah, like I think there's definitely a path to Florida getting a 1 seed if they slip up once in these 4 games. But like I would say that the only way Florida's feeling pretty good going into the SEC tournament is if it wins these next 4 games.
That's a valid point because we won't know until we see it. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, it's like, I mean, like what I'm just saying, I think that, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, if those teams just collapse and Florida loses a game, then we might know that they're fine going into the SEC tournament. But like, I think Florida's lack of, I mean, they'll have 4 more if they win out, 3 more even if they lose 1, so that'll help. Maybe LSU could become a quad 1 win if they can pull off a nice win here to close things out. But right now, Florida only has 5 quad 1 wins compared to 14 for Auburn, 8, I think, for Alabama. So the non-conference schedule kind of hurting here in terms of margin for error down the stretch in terms of getting a 1 seed. But at the same time, like if you're 1 seed, if you're a 2 seed, like I think Florida at this point, I think they're functionally a lock for at least a 2 seed. So
for sure. I mean, I'd be shocked if we weren't at least a 2 seed.
Like even if we lost these last 4, like I don't know.
I mean, I saw it. T3 Bracketology posted 1 through 6 all won, and 7 through 12 all lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a big gap right now between that 6th overall team, which he has as Houston, I think it was, and then that 7th through 12th, like 7 and below. There's a pretty big gap, like 2-game gap probably between those teams.
Yeah.
At this point, which it could become a 3-game gap or even more because, I mean, we play all quad 1 games to finish out the season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say we do finish as a 1 seed. I think something that we need to harp on a bit or touch on, Alex Condon was a game-time decision in this game against LSU, and from what I've heard, it was very close. Like, he could have played if they needed him to play. So I'm pretty confident that we will get him back at Georgia, which makes me a lot more confident for that game as well. And
yeah.
Specifically,
that game scares me. Like I'm nervous about that game. I'll be honest. Like
I'm less nervous about it because I do think we're going to take Georgia 100% because it's Georgia. What's happened with Mike White being the coach. Like that's just, we've seen it every year now where we come out for that game. We don't really come out slow in those games or what's the word I'm looking for? Like lousy bit. I don't know. We haven't really done that yet. And I don't really see a reason for us to start now, especially after
Todd. Didn't he take Todd to overtime in one of these games?
We did go to overtime last year at Georgia. That was the RJ Melendez game.
Okay.
Where Melendez just didn't miss. He went like 35 points or it was something crazy like that. So it took a Herculean effort from RJ Melendez to really send that game to OT. That was also the Micah Handlotton game where he went for like 23 and 17. Gotcha. So, kind of matched them a bit there, but they had a really good big man who went pretty good in that game again. But I'm not too worried because I just think our scoring is going to be there. And now you see Ruben Chinyelu step up as a scoring threat, as now you also bring back Alex Condon and Thomas Houck and Micah Handlotton off the bench. Plus you have Urban Clausard. I just don't think Georgia has enough to do anything. I mean, Silas Demery and Asa Newell and Blue Kane a bit less in there, but those two, Demery and Newell, like they could have good games, but they're also not going to be on the court 40 minutes. So there's going to be a point where Florida is just too much effort, too much. I mean, I heard during the LSU game, they're talking about our front court, and it's just 40 minutes of pressure, no stop. And now you add our 4th big and maybe a 5th. I mean, we don't know about Sam Alexis when he'll be back. Really, the game Alex Condon coming back helps a lot is that Texas A&M game. Because Alex Condon, our best rebounder, and you go against the number 1 rebounding team in the country, number 1 offensive. I'm not sure their defensive rebounding numbers, but overall they're number 1, and offensively they're number 1. So you get Alex Condon back in that game. They have Henry Coleman and something Payne. I don't know his first name, but pretty good player there. I think getting Alex Condon, even without Condon, I know we can win that game. And like, I'm not saying I'm confident, but I would pick us to win that game. But you bring Condon, I'm very confident we win this game against Texas A&M. I think there's also a little bit of looking back to last year when we went to A&M. And you see like Walter Clayton, Alex Condon, Will Richard. They should have something to remember from that game. Some bad calls, and we end up losing that game by like 1 point. Again, we should have won. So I do think they're going to have a little bit of pressure on them to win that game. You also get College Game Day back at Florida for the first time since 2017, I think it was.
2017. Mm-hmm.
So it's a really cool moment for the Gators there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you were saying, like, just it's going to be insane the front court depth this team has when Alex Condon gets back. I mean, yeah, A&M's the big one. Obviously, you really want him back for that. I just would like to see him kind of have a game this week, like against Georgia, to reacclimate. And just frankly, yeah, I mean, because everything you said, you're absolutely right. Like on paper, Florida should be fine against this Georgia team. It's just going on the road in the SEC is always a little scary. I mean, I don't think either of us thought that South Carolina team was going to give Florida as tough a game as they got in Columbia. So you just never know. But I think having Condon, I mean, we've really only seen this team like completely collapse in one game with Condon on the court. So, and that was against
the team collapse one game.
Yeah, true. So yeah, and I don't think Georgia's capable of doing what Tennessee did to Florida in that game. So I'm not too worried about it. But if Condon's playing, even if he's not quite at 100%, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, Texas A&M is currently bracket matrix has them as the last 2 seeds, so they're like that 2-3 line. And it'll update more tomorrow because bracketologists usually do update on Mondays. Some update throughout just every day. But yeah, I mean, I told you everyone lost from 7 to 12, so they're not really going to move much because everyone around them also lost.
Yeah.
Some other cool news with Georgia. If you saw earlier today, Indiana got a pretty big win over Purdue. Indiana was a team lower on the bubble than Georgia. They're now probably going to be above them. So I'm hoping Georgia misses the tournament because it would be pretty funny to see Mike White miss a tournament in a year where they were up as like high as a 5 seed at one point.
Yeah. I mean, they're in pretty dire shape for making the tournament. They need to like beat us. Like it's going to take something like that. Like, I mean, they're I haven't seen like any projection that currently has them in the field, at least the ones that I look at. So,
I mean, yeah, bracket matrix says 17 brackets have them, but we know
17 of 80 something.
87, yeah, and those could be some ones that just haven't updated in a while. I had Georgia's schedule, but it just disappeared. Let me pull it up on KenPom. So they probably, what is their conference record? 4 wins in conference play. They probably need 7. They probably need to win 3 of Florida, at Texas, at South Carolina, and Vanderbilt.
I mean, that's doable. Like
it is. But you also look
the problem is I don't think those wins outside of Florida are not going to.
They probably need to be Florida. Well, yeah. Have you seen like the bubble is really bad this year?
Yeah, the bubble sucks. So the bubble's horrifically bad. Yeah.
So I mean, it's possible they just win games, they can get there, but they probably. I mean, depending on how everyone finished. I mean, we're seeing Indiana finish on a pretty strong note now, like wins over Michigan State and just beating Purdue. So yeah, some teams starting to push themselves up it.
Yeah.
But they probably would need to beat us to make the tournament. And I mean, we just saw South Carolina get their first win in conference play, destroying Texas. And we don't know how good South Carolina is at home. So that's not an easy game at all. So I don't think we're going to get it.
I was just curious real quick before we move on. With how bad the bubble is, how do you feel about their decision to start sort of soft launching tournament expansion this year?
No. I don't want it. Here's the thing. I love March Madness. I mean, we all do, I bet. But like, and it's like, oh, how can you hate adding more March Madness games? I also think you kind of just get to a point. There's a bit much. I mean, look back at last year. Remember Virginia got in as one of the last 4 teams in, and they had that game against Colorado State. And I think they had like 15 points at the end of the first quarter. And they finished with like less than 40, or they had like 44 points to end the game. Like that, we just don't need more of that.
Man, I forgot they really ended it on the most Tony Bennett note humanly possible. I forgot how he ended it with his masterpiece.
So just to quickly finish up, Ken Palm currently gives Florida a 77% chance to win at Georgia, 81% chance to win home with against Texas A&M, 53% chance to win at Bama. There's a pretty big gap on Ken Palm. I'm telling you, I mean, Florida's Ken Palm grade is getting to that historic status where we're fourth in the country. That's how good teams are this year. Most years, Florida would be first. I think I went back like the past since 2010. Besides, I think it was 2015 where you had Kentucky go undefeated until they lost in the tournament. 2019, 2022, and last year, Florida would have been the number one team in the country according to Ken Palm. And in those years, Florida would have been second. And we're talking about UConn after their back-to-back. Baylor when they had like 2 first-round draft picks. And 2019 Virginia was just barely above Florida. They weren't even a 35. So it's like Florida can still get to that point where Virginia was. And then a legendary Kentucky team. So Florida is currently projected to win their remaining 4 games. Now, when you add up like 53% plus 77, like 80, they have us going 3-1. So 27-4 finish. I mean, I would not complain about that at all.
No, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I just like to kind of just summarize like with basketball. I mean, this team is continuing to look like one of the best teams, like a national title contender, even without one of its best players. Like, I'm just really excited to see what this team is when everything's kind of working together. When Micah's a little bit more comfortable, because I think every game, I think you're seeing him look a little bit more comfortable, even though he's not really doing anything on offense. Like, they're not really asking him to do anything on offense right now. And then seeing Condon, hopefully Condon might need a couple games to kind of get back to 100%. But I think like this team, if everything can stay together and everyone can be healthy coming into that tournament, you're going to be hard pressed to find a team who can beat them.
For sure. And I also forgot to mention, we have an 84% chance to beat Ole Miss at home. So I'm shocked Texas A&M is 20th in Ken Palm.
Yeah,
I mean, given they were 7th in the AP poll going into this week, they lost both games.
They're higher than that in net, I'm pretty sure. I don't think they're that low in the net. Maybe they are.
I would be shocked if they weren't. I'm pulling up the net rankings now. A&M they're actually 18th. Wow.
Okay.
I'm shocked at how low they are.
Wonder what they were before they lost yesterday.
They were 17th.
Oh, so they didn't even bump them down.
Well, yeah, you lose a close game to Tennessee. That's not really.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised that they were that low to begin with, I guess.
Gonzaga 10 is just wrong. I mean, Gonzaga's like a 9-loss team now in the West in the WCC.
Wait, are they really 10 in the net right now? Oh my God.
And
well, that sounds like a flaw in the algorithm. We need to get that one fixed, boys. We gotta work that one out.
Some other cool stuff. VCU 31 and UC San Diego 37. I'm pretty sure this first year they're actually eligible for the tournament. And I mean, if you're a team drawing them if you're drawing them at all in the tournament, that's a scary game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're a projected 12 seed right now. Or
VCU, by the way, not even the AQ out of the A10 anymore at this exact moment. They're on the bubble right now and on the wrong side of the bubble.
No, VCU's now. Lombardi hasn't updated yet.
Oh no, I have that. No, I have that backwards. Yep. Sorry, they were not the AQ, and they took George Mason's spot. Sorry, I got my A10.
Demolished George Mason.
Yeah, I got my A10 leaders backwards. I apologize.
Well, George Mason was the qualifier until yesterday.
Yep. My mistake. Right. I'll watch more A10 basketball next weekend before dropping my takes on them.
I mean, hey, Dayton, VCU, Loyola. I mean, Loyola is a good team too. I mean, kind of sucks. Like I think they're only projected to get one team in now with VCU. But I mean, with how good that conference is,
George Mason's like right on the bubble line though. Per Lunardi, he has them like as the first team out.
Lunardi does.
I think he does. At least in the update, I saw him tweet out yesterday. That's yesterday afternoon.
And Dayton's not in anymore, right? I'm not crazy. They're like far off the bubble now.
I don't think
they went from like a top 25 team to like off the bubble. So, I don't see they might still be here as the automatic qualifier. No, VCU is so bracket matrix. No, they're all 12, 12, 12. So yeah, they're not on the. One person has them as 11, so that might be one.
Oh, he has them as the first team in the next 4 out.
Oh, okay, yeah. And
Yeah,
I assume their schedule doesn't really give them a chance. I mean,
probably
unless
not.
Other
but
teams
also, like, whoever's the AQ doesn't really matter at this point because you just got to win the conference tournament. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think VCU now can lose the conference tournament and still get in. They're like
would they be they'd be in as an at-large if they were to lose to George Mason?
Or well, whoever they lost to, like.
Yeah, I'm saying, but like,
as long as they win out the regular season.
I didn't realize they were good enough to be like a bid steal.
They were like they were in that last four in, first 4 out.
Yeah.
Discussion, but then they just got a big quad 1 win against George Mason. Yeah. So they're like they're comfortably in if they go 4-0 and lose in the A10 tournament. And again, we just talked about like St. Joseph's, also a good team there. They have Robbie Avila if you remember from last year. And then Loyola's good, George Mason's good. Dayton can obviously most talented team in the conference. So, but you have anything else you want to bring up about the Gators and going towards a 1 seed, or actually,
not really.
End it off. Prediction for the Georgia game. What's your score prediction?
I say Florida wins it. I'll say like 85-68.
17-point win. We're coming off a game where we didn't score 80 points, which is very unusual for the Gators. We probably do put up 80, but I also do feel like this could be like a 77 to like 62 type of game. Like, see that. I mean, that's 15-point win is a big win on the road, a quad 1 win, easily a quad 1 win. So it's like, oh, we only win by that, but I'll go 83 to 60, 83-62.
Ooh, okay.
21-point win.
Wow. Okay.
I think we're a big mismatch. So, yeah.
Certainly were in the first game.
Yeah. That game was about. So I saw the Gators. I think we have 8 SEC wins by 10+ points, which is the most in the SEC.
Wow.
Pretty cool fact. All right. Do you just want to get straight into baseball?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Pretty fun weekend on the diamond for the Gators. I mean, we can start off. First of all, they're undefeated. 7-0 start. Yeah, 7-0 start for the Gators. Swept Dayton this weekend. All 3 games via run rule. That's pretty cool.
Very
also cool is the new rule that games automatically end after 7 innings. If it's like the automatic run rule is awesome. I love it.
How does it work?
It's just any at least in non-conference games. I think it's maybe for SEC games too, but any game if you're up 10 runs after 7 innings, game ends. So Florida won via walk-off. So Florida walked it off in the 7th inning in all 3 games because if you hit a home run or whatever,
we won in the 8th inning. Or it says an 8 against in the last 2 games.
Okay.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. But so just any time after the 7th inning.
Yeah. I gotcha. Yeah.
So
what? I mean, even if we're batting first, they don't get a chance to.
Well, like it's the same as like a normal game. Like we just were the home team, so we had the chance to walk it off.
Oh yeah, like, bottom, yeah, okay.
Like just if the inning ends and a team has a 10-point lead,
I got you.
10-run lead, then it's over.
Yeah, I mean we continue to see just elite pitching. I mean 1, 2. I mean less innings, so but not
those 3 guys. Yeah,
I mean we're seeing other teams get upset.
Yeah. A&M lost today to Cal Poly. LSU lost to Omaha. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it last week. It's like, oh, okay, it's just 3 games. We can't get too much into it. Yeah. But I mean, you're seeing other teams struggle while this team, kind of like the baseball team, domination again in every single game. None of the games were really even close. So, I mean, we have a big series against Miami this coming up weekend. Might try to pop out to one of those games, maybe the Saturday game before the basketball game. But I mean, if you sweep Miami, then I think we're having serious conversations about Florida being the best team in the country.
Yeah, I need to see them do it again next week against Miami because, like, I mean, Dayton and Air Force are like not good, like even by mid-major standards. So it's kind of hard to read too much. I think, especially into the pitching, because I mean, Liam Peterson, Jake Clemente, and Pierce Coppola have been incredible in each of their 2 starts so far this year. Like the starting pitching, if it's as good as it's looked in these first 2 series, this team is maybe like could be the best team in the country because and I think I need to see that against Miami. I mean, I'm pretty all in on this lineup though. I think this lineup is absolutely unreal. So I saw a stat, I believe first time Gators have scored 10 runs in 6 straight games since 1990.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, the offense has been incredible. I mean, all these transfers, like they all look good. This lineup is good 1 through 9. Like, arguably, some of the guys like 7, 8, 9 are even better than guys batting near the top of the order.
Yeah.
There's not really a clear weakness in this order like there was last year. Like,
or the year before that.
Yeah, or the year before. Yeah, even with Jack and Wyatt, there were some weaknesses later in the lineup. So, I mean, again, need to see it against a real opponent before I go like too overboard, but I am very, very like cautiously excited about this baseball team. Like I thought they were going to be good. They so far look like they're going to be even better than I thought.
Yeah, I saw a stat. I think Nick De La Torre posted. He usually posts a lot of baseball stats. So, I don't see it from him. So it may have been somebody else. But was the run rule like, is it new or was it not back in like 2005? Because
so they had to previously, both teams had to agree to it.
Okay. So I saw it was the first time the Gators have run ruled an entire series since 2005 when we did it against Michigan State.
Yeah. So yeah, if coaches the 2 teams just had to agree beforehand, but now it's just automatic. Like that's just the rule.
Okay.
Yeah, and Rob, we were just talking about like the pitching has been fantastic. I mean, they haven't really faced a lineup that can challenge them, but all 3 weekend starters have been great. Relievers have looked pretty solid too. Kind of didn't get a very good midweek start from Billy Barlow against Jacksonville on Tuesday, but they ended up winning the game. Ended up winning the game anyway. Also, midweek games don't matter unless you lose so many of them that you almost finish below 500 like we did last year. But as long as you don't lose so many midweek games that you're pushing having a losing record and not being eligible for the tournament, they don't really matter. So
Luke McNeely got counted for the win against Jacksonville. That was the midweek game.
He came in and was really good.
Who was? Luke
McNeely. Yeah.
Okay, so who started the game?
Billy Barlow, the Clemson transfer.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Billy Barlow. Does it say the amount of hits he gave up on here? It does not. Okay.
He didn't get hit. He was just it was control. He was walking guys. There were also some errors. It was a really sloppy game.
Yeah, Jackson only had 4 hits in that game.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was just getting shelled. It just was he just didn't look like he really had great control. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know more about baseball than I do. I mean, do you think this team has the potential to be better than our previous 2 teams, which went to the Final Four and the championship, the World Series?
I mean, I already think this is a better team than last year's. I mean, last year's got really hot at the right time. To make that run, they had to have like just guys just absolutely shove like pitchers who had been awful throughout the year. Just ended up being fantastic in the tournament. So
yeah.
I mean, top to bottom, this team looks way better. Obviously, we need to see them get tested, but I can pretty comfortably say I think this is a better team than last year's. Well, I'm not saying they're going back to the College World Series semis because there's more factors that play into it than that. But this will be a team that ranks in the top 10 throughout the season. I feel pretty confident saying that. So as far as the year before, like talking about 2023. I don't know. Like, I mean, they might be deeper. Like, they might be more complete. The pitching was really good in 2020. At least, between Sproat and Waldrip, like those guys are future MLB starters, or at least, potentially. They're kind of working their way up, playing pretty well right now. I don't know if we have that. I mean, Liam looks like a first-round pick next year for sure because Liam has to come back. He's a sophomore. I mean, we'll see, but I think the lineup has the potential to be better top to bottom. I don't know if there's a Cags in the lineup. I mean, Brody Donay's kind of showed that potential. We'll see if there's anyone that's kind of that guy, but I mean, there's so many good hitters in this lineup.
an interesting comparison I've seen with baseball, going back to basketball a little bit, that 2023 baseball team, it was kind of all the talk was about LSU, which for obvious reasons, and Wake Forest, and Florida was kind of third. The rankings would shake out how they were, kind of like how basketball is. But like all the talk was about LSU and Wake Forest, kind of like how this year in basketball, all the talk is about Auburn and Duke. And then you just have Florida, who's second in the rankings, which I think how that baseball season was a lot. Like Florida was like second. And it was like Wake Forest, LSU were first and third. So I think that's a pretty cool dynamic there, a pretty interesting dynamic where the Gators are right there with them, like in every stat, like every category, but those two teams just get a bit more talk. And now we're seeing it with, basketball. Hopefully we can see them make a run. I don't want to say I hope we lose in a championship game because I want us to win the championship game.
Yeah.
But if we're in year 3 of Todd Golden and we lose in the championship game, I'm obviously not going to be hard pressed about that.
Yeah. I will say, and it's not Todd's fault because this has only happened from them being so good, but my standards have raised a little bit. I went from going into the year being if you just get to the second weekend of the tournament and then see what happens. That's kind of where I was at. Now I'm kind of feel I don't know about that. I feel like this team needs to at least get to the Elite Eight. It's just it's not that I think this is a Final Four caliber team. It's just the basketball tournament is so random. Yeah, for sure. This the basketball tournament is just so random. It feels unfair to just expect a Final Four.
Yeah.
But I don't think just because of how things have played out, I think Florida is going to have pretty advantageous matchups in its first 3 games.
It should.
So yeah. So we're getting to the point where it's you'd kind of be losing a game that looks pretty bad to be losing if you're not getting to the Elite Eight at this point. I
was just about to bring it up. If we lost a game before the Elite Eight, that wouldn't really look how the rest of the seasons looked.
Yeah.
Because we dominated. You look at our losses, Tennessee, that's going to be a 2 seed, very likely a 2 seed in the tournament.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. The Missouri game is kind of whatever. It happens. Missouri's still looking to push for a 3 seed. So that's a game that you wouldn't even see until the Elite Eight. And same with Kentucky. Both Kentucky and Missouri are going to be 3 or 4 seeds, which even in those games, we lost by a total of 7 points. One of them on the road. Another game kind of just came out sloppy for against Missouri, which we won't do in the NCAA tournament. I hope we wouldn't do in the NCAA tournament. So it's I'm not really too worried about a game unless we get a really bad matchup like a Missouri in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Yeah, and Duke. Duke would be a tough matchup. Those two freshmen are good. Yeah, sure. I also think that is who we would try. I'm not positive Thomas Houck can cover Cooper Flagg.
I also think it's less of one individual person, kind of like how we covered Janai Broom. It was mostly Condon, but switching. We kind of just let our guys do their game, play their game. We didn't really focus too much on one individual matchup. And it's from matchup wise, Houck and Cooper Flagg, they're built the exact same, both 6'9". I think Houck is 210 and Flagg is 205. So it's they're near identicals. Obviously, Flagg more skilled as an offensive player and defensive player. He's the better player. He's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. So it's Houck's been playing really well. And, one game, obviously, Houck having a better game in one game isn't impossible, but it also doesn't mean he's a better player.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Duke is that, especially since conference play started, they haven't really been tested. They've kind of been coasting. They lost pretty much to the only other semi decent team in the ACC. I think they're beatable, but I do think that is a scary matchup just because of the star power on the other side. Because we haven't really played teams that have multiple lottery picks on the other side. I don't know if I think that would be a matchup. Even Auburn is not built like that. Auburn's those guys are all 25. They're just different kind
they're
of different
elite college players, but they're not high NBA players.
Yeah, they're Chad Baker Mazzara, who's literally my age.
25 years old. Mazzara.
He's he's a year younger than me.
So it's it's different.
Yeah.
Flagg, but it also makes them more beatable because they could have that bad game. You get in their head.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm saying the teams built like that are definitely scary in the tournament. We've seen that at
Mhm.
the entire Calipari tenure at Kentucky. Like it's a dangerous way to build a
Well,
team.
those teams weren't really scary. They
What do
all
you
lost in
mean?
the first round, so
Well, that's kind of that's more the
yeah.
late stage, but I'm saying like his whole thing forever was like
Yeah.
these teams full of freshmen, like 5-star recruits that just didn't quite have the experience to win in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, what they won it in 2012 to Anthony Davis, right?
Yeah, I mean that team was just too good. Literally, just he finally built a team that was too good to lose. Like that just was beyond variance.
It's like, did that team also have like Willie Cauley-Stein backing up
That team had 6
like
first-round picks
SGA?
on the
Like, yeah.
team. 6 first-round picks on the team. They're like their backup, like one of their 6-man got
Yeah,
drafted in
their
the first
six
round
man.
after that.
Who I can't. I'm trying to remember who it was. I'll
I
say.
can't remember either. That was the Harrison twins, I think.
I'm looking
Was
it up
that
right
was also
here.
Michael Kidd Gilchrist too was on that team. Went second overall in the draft, I think.
Let's see. 2012, 2013, no, 2011, 2012.
I think 11 or
Anthony
12.
Davis, Deron Lamb, Terrence Jones,
Deron
Michael
Lamb.
Kidd Gilchrist, Teague. Okay, maybe it wasn't. I mean, the team's obviously good with Anthony Davis. I mean, okay, I think we're combining some teams here.
I mean, Anthony Davis' team was 1 year, and they had 6 guys drafted in the first round that year, and that team won the national title.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't they? Wait, they won the national title the year.
Yeah, they won the national title.
Okay. Yeah.
But they didn't have like a lot of talent, as we're thinking. We're probably thinking of a different team because I do remember they had a 6-man who's now like one of the better players in the NBA. I'm trying to figure out who that was. I think we're thinking of 2015 when they went undefeated and didn't win the title because
No, dude, they had 6 players. Oh, sorry. It was 4 players drafted, 6 player in the first round, 6 players drafted overall. Sorry. So they had 1 guy drafted who was coming off the bench. They had 6 players drafted in 2012. Okay, my bad. But yeah, so they did have still Florida hasn't had a guy. Florida's had like 1 guy get drafted in the last like 7 years. And they had 2 guys drafted that didn't even start.
And going back to we're thinking of I was thinking of like some crazy 6-man. I was thinking of Devin Booker, who's not like one of the best players in the NBA.
Yeah.
So that's but like that 2015 team that went undefeated until they lost in the Final Four. Like Aaron, they had the Harrison brothers.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think they were twins.
Then they also had
I assume they were twins.
Devin Booker, Willie Cauley-Stein, Trey Lyles, who was a first-round pick. Yeah, I mean, that was it. But like,
yeah, they had 6 guys drafted in the first round in 2015 also.
Yeah.
Or 6, I mean not in the first round, but 6 guys drafted total in 2015 also. Yeah, that era was crazy for them. But they only won once. They have less. Cal has less than Billy does. So
what?
I'm saying Cal has fewer titles than Billy Donovan.
Oh, Billy Donovan. I was thinking of Billy.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
I know. Isn't that sad? Isn't it sad that we don't think of Billy Donovan anymore when people say Billy? I think that's
honestly, it kind of is. I mean, I never thought about it until obviously just now. But like, you don't even think of Billy Donovan as the main Billy when you say his name now.
I know, it's crazy,
and it's like he's not even doing well in the NBA anymore. Although that's part of his office.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's had a solid NBA career. Like for what college coaches usually do, I feel like his NBA career has been solid.
I mean, it's been solid, but like now he's with the Bulls and they're like a consistent like 10 seed-ish area.
Yeah.
But that's also because the front office just won't commit to a tank.
And
it's like, yeah, okay. I think it's time to get into our front 7 preview. Last week we did the entire offense. We went over each position, gave it a grade. This week we're just doing the front 7 because the offense we kind of knew where things were going to lay out. Like we kind of knew, okay, Lagway starting. We know Ball is very likely starting, and as well as Jacoby Jackson. The offensive line, we had 4 of the 5 players set. Tight end, we pretty confident in 3 guys there. But defense, a lot more question marks starting wise and depth wise. Some like second stringers. So we kind of want to go individually more intact on this front 7 preview. And this is a good question from Rob. Is Will Harris going to NFL confirmed? Not confirmed.
It's not. Yeah.
No.
In fact, I don't even know. There hasn't even really been much beyond just like Twitter rumors from what I've seen. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of them, but I haven't really seen anything too substantive that he's actually going to the NFL.
Yeah. All right, but let's start this front seven preview. We'll start at the center, the nose tackle position. This is probably the biggest question mark going into the year for the Gators. So on the roster, any of them could start, but I'll lay them out. And what I think the order will be, pending injuries, Jamari Lyons, Mekhi Barrow, DeAndre Robinson, and Stephon Shivers. Plus, I also added in a possible transfer because there still is the fall or spring window that could end up bringing a guy in. We've seen Billy do it a couple times, so I wouldn't rule that out. Yeah, especially because you saw us go after a couple nose tackles in the transfer cycle this past cycle. Yeah. I'll let you start. What do you think of the nose tackle position?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like entirely unproven, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, probably the biggest area I'm disappointed that Florida didn't address in the transfer portal. They tried on a couple guys, didn't work out for them. So they're kind of rolling with what they got. Like you said, maybe that changes in the spring. Wouldn't be surprised if they add a body here, but I'm not sure anyone you would add in the spring is someone who's going to be like certainly a plug-in and play starter. I think probably safe to assume one of the guys on the roster going into spring ball will be your main nose tackle next year. I mean, looks like we lost Tyler. Well, I'll carry this for a second until we get him back. But yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say because we haven't seen like Mekhi Barrow and DeAndre Robinson are guys who really only played like, a handful of snaps as kind of role players, reserved, rotational guys especially down the stretch last season. And we don't really know. Jamari Lyons hurt for most of the year. So really kind of a question there. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, especially because like how important the play of Cam Jackson was last year at that position. Like as the defense got better down the stretch, I think he was a big part of it. It's concerning for sure. And I'm not saying one of those guys can't become a good starter. But I don't think there's anyone there right now that you would look to and be like, oh yeah, for sure. Like this is a guy that we feel good about. Just going to kind of have to hope that there's development there. I think we saw decent development last year from Gerald Chapman, his group with those guys, but it's a bit of a concern. I think the corners and safeties are going to be a lot better this year. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to get into the secondary on next week's show, but I think that certainly could be an interesting group. Not sure where Tyler is, but yeah, I mean, pretty limited options. I mean, like DeAndre Robinson played in a handful of games last year. I'm not exactly sure how many. Here we go.
Hey,
you're back.
There we go.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, and brought up Rob's comment here too, like pretty unproven group there. Especially like, I mean, Barrow and DeAndre Robinson, guys that kind of played a little bit last year as rotational guys. Didn't see a ton of them, and then Lyons was injured. So we just don't know a lot.
I think we did see, a ton, I guess. We didn't see a ton. I thought we saw a good bit of Barrow and DeAndre, especially Barrow. I mean, from week one, we saw him getting good playing time. I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. Like, not a guy that I'm comfortable with starting going into the year, but it could be a guy that's like, oh, okay, he was a good starter. DeAndre was pretty highly rated recruit, obviously. Like, saw a little bit of him. He was decent. I could also see him playing defensive tackle. He doesn't have the size that Barrow or any of the other guys in the room had. I think the guy I'm looking at here is Jamari Lyons. I liked a lot what I saw from Jamari Lyons in his freshman season. I think it was his freshman season in 2023. So I think if he's healthy, that's like the biggest question we have. It's been, is he going to be ready? Is he going to be healthy? Like, I think if he's healthy, I think it could be good. I mean, I think he can be really good. Like, obviously not the level like Cam Jackson was, but I think he'll be better than what we saw from Des Watson, Des Watson was solid. I mean, when you have two guys around you at the defensive tackle and Caleb Banks and defensive end and Tyreek Sapp, it can mask a little bit or make you look better. I mean, that's kind of how you look at QB position a bunch to make the receivers and tight ends and offensive lines look better. And I mean, we talked about hopefully we can get a transfer in the spring cycle. What'd you give this grade for the position?
Frankly, I think you'd be hard pressed to give it anything better than like a C because there is talent and potential there, but really just not. I mean, like you said, like Lyons, Burrow, and Robinson are all guys who have had like moderate production playing as rotational guys so far in their careers, but no one who's really played like starter level snaps. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably at like a C because I don't think I can like fairly give it anything higher than that.
I'm trying to remember if I gave tight ends a C or a C plus. I think I gave tight ends a C plus, right?
I might have gone C minus for tight. I might have gone C minus.
Honestly,
for tight ends,
I'm lower on the nose tackle room than I am the tight end room. I'm gonna go C minus for nose tackle.
Okay.
But I do think he has the potential of like a B.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've seen Napier do. Like the offensive line, probably like the entire line going into the season, probably would have given like a C going into the year, and probably end up being like a B plus. So it's like it can turn out to be good.
I mean, like this could be a solid. Like if one of these guys is good, then it's probably fine. Yeah. But it's just I don't feel super confident about it as we sit here today.
Did you talk about Brian Taylor at
I did not mention.
No? Okay.
I did not mention Brian Taylor.
So I think Rob is talking about Brian Taylor was a JUCO transfer.
I assume that's what he's talking about.
Actually, I think is an interesting thing. I don't think he's a nose tackle. I know he's not really a nose tackle.
Yeah,
he's a defensive tackle. We'll get here into the DT room now. Caleb Banks, potential first round draft pick, going into the year. Like this is almost as good as it gets in college football. So I'm happy there. And I think you have to look at the depth of that position a bit and maybe have some worries. We just talked about Brian Taylor Jr. He's a guy I've heard a lot of people actually really hype up. A guy with a lot of potential, good size. We'll see. Like, I mean, again, he wasn't a high-rated recruit, was a JUCO. It's just a guy that I've heard a lot about from people who do watch and know things from the staff. So we'll see there. Some other things look at, maybe DeAndre Robinson, because he's kind of tween. Like, he's not full size for a nose tackle, but he's also a bit bigger for a defensive tackle. So, I mean, if Taylor isn't that good, might see more of him. Another JUCO, Tavares Brown. Someone just huge. Like a big guy. I think he's like 6'8" or something like that. So, another development piece that we know Billy loves bring in. Maybe someone who plays. And then you have two true freshmen, Jeremiah McLeod and Joseph Mbachu. Joseph, I don't know if we see much of this year. A guy who's newer to football, more developmental piece, high upside. Jeremiah McLeod is one that we might see a good bit of this year, depending on how we talk about like Robinson and Taylor are. Obviously, Georgia really wanted Jeremiah McLeod. Bit more day one ready. So it could be a guy we see there. But I think when you look at the fact that you have Caleb Banks and some decent talent and some rumors, some other guys maybe stepping up, it's a room. I'm going to give it A minus.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think Banks, Banks is as good a returning defensive player as there is in the SEC. Was as key as to that success down the stretch last year as any player on the team.
Yep.
Getting him back was probably Florida's biggest win of the offseason. Maybe like outside of keeping Austin Barber, but like other than that, like I don't know what else you would even argue was as important. So I mean, I think you feel good about that. Yeah, depth, I mean, is not great. I mean, I'm not sure there's really any position. Yeah. That's a better way to say it. I'm not sure there's any position group on this team outside of maybe running back where you feel like great about the depth.
There's one position
about the depth.
There's like two other positions we'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. But I mean, like I'd say I'm at a B plus here.
B plus. Okay.
B plus, just only because like I'm really high on Banks, and if there was even like one more semi-proven guy, I'd be probably with you at like AA minus. I just I do worry a little bit about like what this room looks like if God forbid something like were to happen to Banks.
That's fair. I will say Caleb Banks, he did play like a good amount of snaps, so he's not like a low usage player. So worrying about depth could be more about injuries. I mean. Yeah, like 58 snaps of 93 total for a defensive tackle. That's a pretty high rate there. And maybe a guy who can play more now. Did he get hurt in that LSU game too? Or was that the Ole Miss game?
I I think that was Ole Miss, but I'm not
Okay.
100%. I'm not. I could be wrong about that. It definitely was one of those 2 games, but I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was.
Okay, that makes I lost my notes. Whoops. Okay. So you go B plus. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting at B. I'd say I'm sitting at B plus. Although, like, yeah, B plus, A minus. Like, I'm right around there. Like, I'm not too like if I'm a B plus, it's like right on the borderline. But I think that's where I'm gonna say, just because there's not like really much proven at all beyond Caleb Banks.
Going back onto what we discussed, no tackle and D tackle. I think on the D line, we're talking about Jeremiah McLeod being the guy that can come in and contribute. I mean, Bachu could obviously, he's higher rated, could develop, but bit more project. Project. I'd be kind of surprised. Maybe we also forgot to mention nose tackle Stephon Shivers.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I mean, nose tackle is pretty difficult to play. They won the SEC, so
yeah. Like interior defensive line in general, like these guys are just not typically going to be massive contributors early on in their career, though obviously they can be.
Few exceptions.
Yeah.
All right. So we've just talking about it, not sure about the depth. This is where this is one of the 2 positions that I'm outside of running back. I'm really high in the depth. You've got the F, which is what's listed on the depth chart. Also defensive end. I mean, Tyreek Sapp, I think you talked about maybe the biggest retaining of Caleb Banks, maybe no one bigger. I think Tyreek Sapp is just there with Caleb Banks. I mean, I'm seeing Tyreek Sapp also get some first round projections in this coming year's 2026 NFL draft. I mean, I'm as high in Sapp as you can be. I think he's had 7 or 8 sacks this year. Saw a lot of it ramp up at the end of the year, kind of like we did with Banks. Someone I could see having 10 sacks, which from the defensive end position is a bit less common, not uncommon, obviously. But you look at a lot of our guys at UF who had those sacks, it's usually edge. So defensive end, I mean, Sapp getting there would be monumental for this team and for himself. But then you go down the depth chart, Cam James. We saw a lot of Cam James this year, good run stuffer, good pass rusher, hoping he can develop also more going into the year. If Cam James was a starter, I'd be okay with it. But he's a backup here, which is like why I'm really ecstatic about this position. And then you also have LJ McCray, 5-star freshman, who 2 sites had as a top 4 player in the country. So it's like you're hoping he develops more, which like with those 5 stars, you kind of have to bank on a bit when we're making these early predictions. And then I also put Jalen Wiggins in this group. I think he's a little bit bigger than edge rusher would be. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit heavier than what you would normally see from an edge rusher. So I kind of think he goes to defensive end, although 247 has him listed as an edge. I mean, this room I think is just really good all around.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you say it all out loud like that all at once, like, yeah, that's a pretty impressive position group. I mean, Sapp, really good, reliable starter. Cameron James, like, played a ton and was impactful when he did. And then LJ, we didn't get to see a lot of. I mean, I would say promising moments, though, like not a lot that I'm not sure there's a lot of like LJ McCray plays I like think back on and remember from last year, but also nothing glaring either. So it's like
high 5-star status.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a mix of, this position's a mix of like proven starting experience, very solid and experience depth, and like high level elite talent too in the depth. So like, yeah, this is exactly what you want. This is a good position. Getting Sapp back. I mean, if you don't have, if Sapp had left, for one reason or another, this I think is a little bit more precarious. Just if you're looking at Cam James and LJ McCray, but yeah, I mean, I'm like at an A here.
I'm gonna go A plus.
Okay,
because I really like Cam James, and I mean, I talk about Sapp being a potential first round pick and McCray's high school ratings and everything. Like, this is kind of like how you see Georgia, like how they were getting their talent. Like, they'd have that one projected first round pick, another guy who took a year or 2, they've developed. You saw a little bit from him that looked good, and he's another top 150 for us, 150 for Georgia. It may have been 5-star top 50, but still. And then you have another freshman, or now going into a second season, who was that elite 5-star prospect. And then you still are bringing in kids like Jalen Wiggins, who was 150 or area, now highly rated, talented prospect. So I think that's like as good as it gets for you here. So I'm really high on this room.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I said A plus.
Yeah.
Like, next position we'll get to the jack slash edge rusher position. It's a position we talked a lot about in the transfer portal. We went and got Kofi Asare from UMass. Not crazy stats, but has some good film on him. Not sure he's going to be the starter here. I think it's George Gums who ends up being the start here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we see Gums more edge rushing than we saw him last year. Took more pass rushing snaps. You obviously did have Jack Pyburn and pass defending snaps. But like last year, you had Jack Pyburn and Searcy who were good run stuffers. Not really great pass rushers though, so you didn't really need to play Gums there. Although when you did, I feel like you saw him excel there a bit more. So I'm going to say Gums gets a bit more time there this year. And then you bring in Jaden Woods, who, I mean, I don't know if you see it on Twitter. I've seen a lot of this guy practicing and just continuing to improve. Someone that when we got him, I was high on him. Like, I think this is the highest potential guy we got in that class. And someone who could make an immediate impact if you don't see like a Kofi Asare get that development. You could also see LJ McCray here, as well as like Aaron Childs on a couple plays. Like I think you look back at the snap counts, you've seen Childs take like 2 snaps at this position while having like 13 or something at true linebacker positions. So I think this is a good room. Obviously not the level as defensive tackle or defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would say it's probably the weakest position on the defensive line outside of nose tackle, but I do like this group. I mean, I think Gums playing this kind of more on a full-time basis is probably for the best for like him and the defense, honestly. Like I think Gums, I mean, because like now you just have so much linebacker talent, which we'll get to in a little bit, that you have just enough guys that can play off the ball. You don't really need to have Gums be doing that. And he was very impactful. I can't remember how many. Did he have like 5 sacks last year? How many sacks did he have?
5 sounds right.
Okay.
I'll double check, but I think it's 5.
Okay. But yeah, so I mean, solid pass rushing production, especially for a guy who wasn't doing it full time. I mean, I think he's good there. I mean, Asare, like, we'll see. Like, I'll be honest, like a guy who had like 3 sacks at UMass doesn't exactly get me super fired up, but they seem to really like this guy. They seem to be really high on him.
5 sacks last season.
5 sacks for Gums. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we'll see with Asare, like how big of a role he plays in the rotation. Wouldn't exactly surprise me if, sort of like Slackman did this year, he just kind of finds himself sort of supplanted by other younger guys in the
like Jaden Woods or LJ McCray.
Exactly. And I think, we talked about, when I was saying interior guys on the defensive line, kind of harder for them to see the field early on, less so for edge rushers. Like as we saw, Harold Perkins made his money literally and figuratively as a package pass rusher his freshman year.
Rob's not high on Gums like everyone else is. I don't know how like high we are on Gums. I mean, I also don't know how low you are. Like if you're thinking we're calling Gums an A+, we're not doing that. But if you're calling him like a C, we're also not doing that. Like I'm gonna give the position overall a B-.
Okay.
Because it can be better. Like I could see, I mean, I'm really high in Woods. Like I've already said that many times today in other videos. Gums, I think, is good. So it's like it could be as high as probably like an A-, but I don't know if it has like that A+ potential. So I'm gonna go B-.
Yeah, my kind of initial thought was B. And not to copy you, but I actually kind of like B-. I'm gonna go with B- as well. That feels more right to me because I like Gums. I think Asare is a question mark with potential. I think I like I'm with you. I'm high on Woods. And what I was kind of about to say before we started talking about Gums was like, I think he is like this edge is a position where you can see freshmen make an impact. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see him be one of those guys that does make an impact early on. But that's a lot of projection, and like it'd be kind of dishonest with how I've talked about other positions to be too high on it because I like a true freshman to be a contributor. So I think B- is fair. Not really anyone elite there, but a lot of guys who have a lot of decent to good experience.
Yep. So now this next position is it's interesting here. It's a position that usually we see on like passing downs. When we talk about Gums when he was playing in coverage or rushing the passer, usually when we saw him in coverage, it was at the Sam position. It's kind of a spot you can put on the other edge, next to that defensive end. That we saw Gums get 5 sacks playing mostly at this position last year. So I think if we're really trying to rush the passer, I would suspect you put Gums at Sam, and then either Asare or one of those freshmen or McCray at the Jack position. We also saw Aaron Childs get a lot of snaps at this position compared to like the amount of snaps that this position gets. So it's really just Gums and Childs. I mean, for a position that you don't see that often, you have a guy that, again, we saw play pretty good at this position, plus a guy we saw. I mean, Childs made some plays at the end of the year, and it's another top 100 recruit. I'll say I'm higher on Sam than Jack because of, again, it's a usage thing. Like, I'll go B. I mean, can't really go lower or higher, so I'll say a B.
This is a really hard position to like give a grade on because it's so contextual. Like it really just depends on what they try to do, defensively this year. I mean, I think, like, I don't know how you could say anything other than B. Like if we're
right.
At least you'd have to go B- at worst, because we just gave the position that it like is half of this position a B-. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Like if we're high on Gums, we can't be that much lower on Sam. So yeah, I would think that maybe what the best thing to do in terms of getting your best 11 guys on the field would be have Childs play Sam and Gums at edge, so you can have Childs on the field too, because I don't know, and we'll get into this too with the linebacker group. Good talented position there too, so going to be a lot of very competitive for snaps. Wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of the happy medium they settle on, unless a guy like Kofi Asare or one of the freshman edge rushers are just that good that you can't keep them off the field.
Okay, so you also went B?
Yeah, I think B is fair there. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you make the grade for the linebacker position. The players looking at here: Grayson Pup Howard, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Jaden Robinson, Ty Jackson, Miles Johnson. I mean, we went last year, Shamar James and Pup Howard starting. We talked about Shamar being a good, not great starter. And then you had a bunch of young talent that we were super high on. Pup Howard got good playing time at South Carolina as a freshman, was somebody that the staff was really high on coming out of high school, and a lot of other people were really high on. When Pup played, he was probably our most consistent linebacker, and like consistently like a B+ level good. And now you go to like Miles Graham, who top 50 recruit, Aaron Childs, top 100 recruit. And we're bringing in Ty Jackson, who Billy Napier says his 2024 season or 2023 season of tape was the best high school tape he's ever seen. So he's as high as can be on Ty Jackson. I mean, I'm going to let you give the grade here. I'm going to let you break it down a bit more as well.
Yeah. Looking at these guys, I'll just be honest. I love this room. I think this is a really good room. I mean, like you said, Pup was at especially, kind of battled injuries at points, but was when healthy was as good as anyone on that defense. I think losing Shamar is tough in the sense that I think Shamar was a good player, but I mean, I think Miles Graham was really coming on at the end of the season. It's hard to even feel like this is a major drop off. If it's a drop off at all, it might not be. It might even be. I don't know. Is it hasty to say it could be an upgrade?
It's not. I don't. Okay. I hate to say it because I really like Shamar, but it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That
and we're talking about this. I mean, I assume you're going to mention Childs next.
Yeah.
Or I'll let you continue. Yeah.
Well, who I was going to mention next was Jaden Robinson.
That's what
I believe when we did our superlatives, I think I had him for something like surprise player of the year or something.
He was fifth in tackles
or underrated player.
Underrated is probably what he did. Yeah. He was fifth in tackles on the team.
He was.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was starting. I think Miles Graham is too good to not start, and Pup Howard I think is also more proven.
Yeah,
but you're talking about Jada Robinson and Aaron Childs, and then, I guess supposedly Ty Jackson being those second, third, and fourth guys. I mean, third, fourth, and fifth guys off the bench. I mean, this room is as good as we've seen since when? What? I mean, like, when did we have a linebacker room this good? Like,
I'd say the Muschamp, the
yeah,
Anzalone, Alex
that's
Anzalone, Jared Davis years. Yeah.
So what will you give this grade?
Well, I just real quick before I grade it, I just want to add like on top of all the guys we've talked about, there's also Aaron Childs. I mean, who we'll kind of see where exactly they use him, but is a guy that also was promising last year. And I'm glad you brought up the Ty Jackson, the thing Billy said about Ty Jackson's film, because I was going to say that if you didn't. Like, of all the true freshmen on this team, I would say maybe limited by just the talent above him, but I would say, like, in terms of being ready to contribute, I'd say he's probably one of the freshmen I'd expect to potentially see the field this year. I mean, I think this is another A.
Yeah. I'll also go A. I mean, this room is just so talented, proven.
Yeah.
It's not proven enough to be an A plus, but it's proven enough to probably be like an A minus. But then you add the talent, and we've seen every year them develop linebackers pretty well since Billy's first year here with Jay Bateman. So yeah, I'm also gonna go A, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're coming back here in a year, or I guess less than a year, saying that this room was the reason that we were a playoff team.
I mean, I'd say I'd be a little bit surprised if we're a playoff team, but if we are a playoff team, I think you're right that the linebackers would be a major reason for it.
I mean, hey, you had us as a 9-3, which it's very likely could be a playoff team.
I mean, there will be 9-3 teams that make the playoffs, if not this year. Like, it's going to happen fairly regularly. So,
Ultra Gator Pup Howard is a stud. I mean, he really is. Like, he has the size, he has the speed, like everything you want in a good linebacker, and young. Like, I'm really excited. Like, I'm so happy we got him to transfer from South Carolina, because I know a lot of people from that. I think it's from Jacksonville, and David Waters. He was really.
I'm sorry, keep going. I just didn't realize. I'm not sure I realized he was from Jacksonville. I'm trying to remember where he went to high school.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh, he did. Andrew Jackson. Okay. Sorry. Yep. I totally forgot about that.
But local Jacksonville's 2 hours away from Gainesville. I mean, hour and a half away from Gainesville, so it's pretty local. Yeah. It's like he has everything you want in a Florida linebacker, and then you add it up with the fact that the guys below him are just so talented. And I mean, Billy's really done a really good job at the linebacker position that we haven't really been good at. We are talking about since Muschamp, really.
Yeah, at least since Muschamp's recruits, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had some decent ones like David Reese, Voshawn Joseph. Like, we had 4-year starters that were good, but I mean, we have legit NFL talent now.
Yeah, like none of those guys got. I don't think Voshawn got drafted. I know that David Reese did not get drafted. Yeah.
Jared Davis did.
Jared Davis like a second round pick. So was Anzalone.
And Ventrell was a 4th round pick.
So, yeah. Who's Ventrell? Actually, Ventrell was really good for the Jags, by the way.
He was like a solid linebacker too.
Yeah. I mean, he's in line to, like, if not start, be a major part of the Jags rotation next year. So,
well, he's behind Foye Oluokun, who like last 3 or 4 years was the leading tackler in the NFL, and Devin Lloyd.
Out Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd's kind of meh.
He's been suffering injuries. Like, he hasn't really gotten the chance because of it, which, I mean, going to year 4 now for him. At some point, I guess you gotta say, hey, those injuries are it's a problem. So maybe we'll see. I feel like Ventrell is too much like Foye for Ventrell to start over Lloyd, because then you're
probably right about that.
Because Ventrell's not the most athletic guy. So it's like we have some good run stuffers. Then you kind of worry about passing.
You worry about a lot of things with the Jaguars, but Liam Cohen and James Gladstone got us. We're fine.
Yeah, hey, T-Law MVP next year. He's going to dethrone. Well, I guess we already saw Patrick Mahomes dethroned. He'll dethrone him in the AFC.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything you want to add on before we end the stream?
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it. I mean, I think if you want to break it off into, the 3 blocks, the offense we talked about last week, the front 7 today, the secondary we're going to get to next week. I'd say of those 3, the front 7 is the one that I currently feel the best about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. that front
even
seven.
even though the front seven contains probably the biggest question mark on the entire team.
It does. It does.
But what they have outside of that, they return a lot of experience, a lot of depth. It's really just one position. And if you can find, if one of those guys can emerge as a capable nose tackle, you've got the makings of a very promising front seven.
I think it's going to be interesting talking about the DBs because we have a lot of experience in that DB room with like Costello, 2-year starter. Thornton started some games 2 years ago and started a lot at the end of the season at that safety, but we're still not sold on it. It's like a lot of the positions we're talking about experience, and it's like, oh, that guy's like a B+, A- type of guy. But then you look at this one, I mean, look at that secondary, it's going to be interesting. And then the corners, some injury-riddled players that are experienced, and some other players that we're looking to step up. And we'll also be talking about the special teams unit in that.
Awesome. But also, thank you, Ultra Gator. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks, Ultra. I mean, we appreciate all the listeners. Make sure you guys like the stream and subscribe. That it you want to say? That's it?
No, yeah, I think this is a really promising group. Like outside of nose tackle, which has some questions, like I don't think there's really any position that you worry about really at all. Yeah, like our questions are like, how does the depth chart break down? But like outside of nose tackle, I don't think there's any position where we're like, man, who plays the lion's share of the snaps here? Like I think it's pretty clear.
It definitely is. So this is the last stream of February. We will be seeing you guys on March 2nd. The Gators, obviously, basketball team, 2 big games, quad 1 opportunities, including a game with College Game Day. We already said it. We'll be breaking it down the DB unit and the special teams. And as always, we'll see you guys next week. And as always,